I'll explain to you the collapse of the U.S. economy. It was premeditated. This was planned out. And it wasn't organic. The economy didn't just buck and wane. It didn't just get outsourced autonomically. This was an agenda. Like, this has been an agenda to deprive the first world nations of the wealth of which they had built. Because back in the 90s and early 2000s, there were numerous organizations pushing this climate change. Obviously we now know it's a scam. We knew that then, though, but trying to tell people that it's a scam. But now we're dealing with the fact that in the process of many jurisdictions and counties and cities trying to mitigate climate change by taking action against specific racial groups, because one of the studies showed in early, I think it was 2000 or 2001, it showed that white people, European people, first world white people, were the largest producers of CO2. We had the highest expenditure of petroleum energy and consumption levels, and predominantly it didn't show the fact that we were so high on the consumption level because we were producing per capita greater levels of GDP, or rather more wealth than we were consuming at that point. But the studies, the way they were done, did not reveal this fact. They didn't show this. They didn't demonstrate it. And so the UN and its guidance, along with many first world countries, not just white, those other countries as well, including Japan, basically forced a version of CRT DEI where we were obligated to bring in people from the third, quote unquote, we've had this conversation with third world before, in order to mitigate the CO2 production of people from the first world, predominantly European, because we were rated as the greatest producers of CO2. And basically this was a form of genocide. It was racist, it was a form of genocide. It continues today. It's still going on in many countries, including in Europe. Their plan was to agricize or agoricize, reduce down to agricultural levels, or basically agrarian lifestyle. And the principle that they were working with was that if you reduce everything down to the agrarian level, there would be reduced CO2 output. And in order to do this, they decided to roll back plans for high-tech future, the plans for nuclear power plants, plans for cost-effective energy. And they shut down thousands and thousands and thousands of plants in the United States. In my home state, they shut down 2 nuclear plants and 2 natural gas power plants that were basically acting as substitute power plants for when demand was high, for when they shut down the 2 nuclear power plants up north. In Chicago, they shut down all except for 1 nuclear power plant that I'm aware of. There might be a second one down by Champaign, but I know they shut down all except for the one near Chicago. And, this was part of the agenda to shut down all the power plants and to reduce the capability of the first world nation, or as they call it, the racist white people nations, to continue to consume at a greater level and produce at a greater level. And this includes producing products, things that reduce suffering, reduce the cost of living for other people outside of the first world nation, and basically raising the ocean the whole way. Somebody will say, "Oh, it's trickle-down economics." They killed trickle-down economics with the Green Agenda. That's what the communists retort, reply to trickle-down economics, which I'm not saying trickle-down economics was a useful or an effective plan. I'm not saying it is or isn't, because it's not a discussion for this, but what they basically did is create a mandated form of racism based on restriction of energy production and CO2 production. And so the whole thing is racist. The IPCC, the whole agenda is racist. The only countries that it applies to are first world nations, which is basically Europe and the United States. That's it. Australia and Canada kind of qualify, and they got added to it later, but at the time that it was created in 1998 and 1999, the only countries that applied to were the United States and Europe. Japan got added when they added the whole Kyoto thing and all that stuff in the mid-90s. But this whole agenda was designed to collapse the first world's, or rather the democratic world's economy, because the only economies it didn't apply to were communist economies. Now, we'll not go into the politics of this now, but the communist economies all, or rather the socialist, the democratic socialist, it means nothing. They're just Marxist dictatorships. The Marxist dictatorships in Central Asia, Asia, Eastern Asia, Southern Asia, Northern Asia, and Central Africa, Western Africa, and Eastern Africa. And now it's Southern Africa too, because South Africa fell in the early 2000s to Marxist dictatorship stuff. And now the entire world is turned against, basically the entire world turned against the Enlightenment and has started to push back on the Enlightenment, as it were. And part of it is the racist agenda to remove people who are viewed as colonists, which is white people. Like, they're even trying to remove white people from Europe, which they said we colonized that too. And this agenda it's comprehensive. It's all over the UN. It's in everything that they do. It's all over UNICEF. CRT is the de facto state of rule over there. So was the ending of whiteness, which is a talking point in the UN. It's a talking point with everybody else. And all this stuff is all connected. Like the ending of the dominance of European culture or American culture in Europe and America was task number one, because they wanted to reduce the output of CO2. And that's how they went about doing it. All of it was a scam. It's all a racist scam. Like the whole thing. And everyone will say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy theory. No, they made several reports about it. I'll go look one up, see if I can find one. We use Grok because I know ChatGPT probably won't have it. You have to excuse my chin. Let's see if we can point you at the monitor. I got a tiny little monitor. Maybe if I learn how to type with one hand. It was a big deal. It was all in the news and everything. Fox News had a thing on it. CNN had a thing on it. Discovery Channel did a massive thing. They're still saying CO2 is factually. But we go and look at it, like these things are the dominant thing. Why the countries, the first world countries, Europe and our economies are declining because of this effort to reduce CO2 output. As a part of this, they also decided to restructure the way society is formed to reduce, the concentration of people who have high output of CO2, who have high consumption levels and high production levels. So basically, in order to do this, they came up with this plan during Obama's administration in 2009 or 2010, I believe it was, to break up any kind of conclave of industrial production within the United States by using the housing authority to move people whom they were considering to not be high producers of CO2, not high consumers of productive assets within the United States, and move them into communities which were and are both producers of high levels of CO2 and consumers of products to create high levels of production, or rather, an economy. Basically, they stifled the economy. And if we can look from here, you can see right there, the United States still remains on top with 4,682 metric tons in 2023, which is 12% of the global total, and nobody's even close. And this is after they did all of this reduction from 2000, which was 21% reduction. And this has been an agenda for a very long time. And I can't find the research. If I find it later. Oh yeah, data from Edgar. Edgar has it. According to this, per capita CO2 emissions, Canada and Australia are the only ones that beat us. But since their population are so much smaller than ours, it's unbelievably smaller. They do this research every year now, but when they first started doing it, Time Magazine had this big thing of how high IQ or high educational levels actually cause people to consume more and produce more CO2. I don't remember the exact year, but it was one of these, maybe Newsweek, An Economist, Time Magazine. I'm sure if you look it up in ChatGPT, they were talking about how white people as a race were the highest consumers and the highest producers of CO2. And they basically, within this article, argued for the ending of the white race on this argument alone. So the agenda is not a conspiracy. It was an open agenda. That's what the Time Magazine, presenting the ending of the white race by mixing and all this other stuff. It is not a conspiracy. It's out in the open. They are not hiding it. It was Agenda 21. After that, they could push it back to Agenda 2030. And it's also on Agenda 2050. They are trying to commit genocide. They are not hiding it. All these population reducers are the same way. One guy's over here encouraging, the Time Magazine article by saying we need to have more babies. And on the other side, they're saying we need to decrease the number of white people. It's not a conspiracy. It's out in the open. It's out in the open. We didn't come to these conclusions because we were crazy. We came to them because we read their research. We read their results. Am I going to go back and find all the data and information regarding it? And maybe if I get like 500 views on this and 5 likes, I will do that. But otherwise, probably not. It's not productive for me to do so. I have other things that I'm doing that are not doing research. But this has already been a thing. We've already known about it in the libertarian community. We're fully aware of it. In the America First community, we're fully aware of it. We've had this discussion numerous times, including back in 2016 when we decided to back Donald Trump. And I don't know where he sits on this because he's never spoken about it. He used to be against the IPCC, or whatever you call it now. They changed the name from what I understand. He used to be in favor of defunding the IPCC and in favor of defunding the UN. He used to be in favor of ending the EPA, but we can see what's going on now. The guy's nowhere near where he was in 2016. So I'm not going to judge anybody because it doesn't do me any good.